It's Saturday, the 4th of May, and the time is 9:50 a.m. My name is Dingane, and there's no other way to say it. Yesterday was an absolute disaster. Who did I think I was? Marching into an actual witch's house like I'm something to be worried about. Like I'm Van Helsing or like I'm my grandfather. Bongi was right. I don't know what I'm doing. Don't even know how the stupid magic knife works. At the very least, the clenching has pulled back a bit, moved down from my throat to the top of my chest. It seems like this agreement is a bit more fluid than I initially thought. Maybe it's not concerned with how many scary things you kill, but that you're making best efforts to carry out the work. And if, like me, your best efforts are absolutely embarrassing, you don't have to suffer for it. Or maybe I was overreacting and I just had heartburn. Who knows? When she invited those creatures, it's one thing to read about it, and another entirely to see it happen. The way the shadows grow in the corners of your vision, moving like smoke, pulling together and pouring into shape like black tar, and turning solid at the final instant. It was a water spirit, and then some kind of snake, patterned with grey and black, almost like ash and soot when a fire dies down. And the lightning bird. Its eyes. I can't imagine anyone looking into those and not thinking they were staring at the face of a god. I don't believe any of them caught my scent. The water spirit had to bite me last time, I think. But that doesn't mean I didn't sit far from the door with the useless knife in hand. I don't stand a chance against Bongi. Not unless I figure out what I did wrong, and not until I learn more about the nature of witchcraft. Now that I've bought myself some time, I can actually study up in earnest. The account from Mepule prompted me to dig for more like it, and so far, I found one. This is File 1, Entry 16, an account typed out on an A4 page and folded over, with the phrase, "Beyond," scrawled on the back in black Koki pen. I didn't set out to be this way, you know? I'm sure a lot of people say that when there's nothing good to look back on. I guess you always hear that the end is supposed to put everything into perspective, give you some sort of clarity. I don't know if that's what I'd call this, but it's definitely been some time since I thought about who I was before it all went dark. I lived on a farm with my parents. Not large by any means. Only about 4 cows, give or take as time passed, as well as half a dozen goats and plenty of chickens. It wasn't a proper farm, of course. We got a piece of land when my grandmother passed. She and my grandfather had themselves been given it by the chief of the area when they were freshly married and looking for a place to settle. My father fancied himself a fair shot, starting as small as he was. Though, truth be told, there'd been a number of missed shots before that at various other businesses. He never let it knock him down, though. He always said that you could get used to struggling, so long as you never let it knock you down. We did manage to get the farm going. There was enough grass on our plot for the goats, and rain often enough to sustain it. My father would hire a pair of local boys to take the cows further out, a few times a day in the fields that were more plentiful for grazing, and he would pay them in the evening with a meal and a mug of beer. I helped my mother with the chickens, feeding, cleaning their run, and collecting eggs. And as I got older, I took it over entirely, along with some more work helping my father, It was chickens and eggs we sold more than anything. Breeding the other livestock was less certain, so sales were few and far between. But we always had food to eat, and we made enough to get by. That is, until the drought hit. I remember first learning about it while I was at tertiary. Something to do with the weather system over the sea, if I recall, though I never understood how. I wasn't studying meteorology. I was living in residence at the time, and I saw it in the photos my roommate shared with me from news articles online. I heard about it from my parents when we managed to get in touch by call. But it didn't feel real until I came home at the end of the year and saw it for myself. Felt my heart sink as I saw the fields of bone-dry crops, rows and rows of dull, worthless gold sticking out of the cracked earth. We were struggling again, as you can imagine. We couldn't feed our animals with dead grass, couldn't water them because the nearest river was drying up, and the local municipality started to ration a water supply that was already spotty at best. We were meant to receive some kind of help from government, feed or money or both, but for whatever reason, it never made its way to us. The youngest cow was the first to go, being the smallest. I remember she was already small even at birth. My father said she must not have grown enough while she was inside her mother, but we were all too endeared to be rid of her. I often dreamed about her, after, and her patchy hide stretched thinly across her bones when I found her toppled over in our kraal. We knew, then, that there was nothing we could do, nothing but watch them slowly malnourish and die. Still, we prayed to God every night, prayed to the ancestors too, for good measure, as it remained our only solace. We called out for a miracle to come our way, and, for whatever reason, it was mine to receive. What I was starting to learn, still somewhat young, was that you could be desperate enough to accept any answer. What I still didn't know was that miracles weren't always good. So that one night, which wasn't much different from any other night that month, when I called out with my soul for help, something called back. Not a voice, a feeling, but it was more than any higher power or even the idea of one had given me. And I knew that if I held to it, I could save our farm. So, I did. I woke up feeling a little ill the next morning, but I thought nothing of it and went about my chores as I usually did. We got a ration of supply that day, so my father and I set out to water the goats and cattle and washed out the kraal while they were occupied. I also washed their hoofs and brushed their coats if they were willing, as we had enough concerns outside of illness. As I tended to the animals, though, I began to feel something I couldn't quite describe. I suppose I wouldn't have thought to describe it then, lacking the awareness I have now. But I knew only that it was a cold, ebbing sensation. It came from within me, somewhere, spread out down my arms and into my hands. I didn't notice until a week after. I wouldn't have expected to, you see. How the animals looked a little healthier with each day that passed, a little more full of figure, even though we'd fed them no more than we could scrape together since the drought had set in. None of us could understand it, let alone try and explain it. My mother said it was a gift from God, and that maybe it was best not to question it. My father said it was a blessing from the ancestors, and that we should set aside a few chickens to give thanks. And I, with the dreadful cold I held to my chest in strange comfort, kept my thoughts to myself. I could see, though, much as I tried to ignore it, that there was something different about the animals. They were often still, even as they recovered from their hunger and thirst. Far too still for living things. And when they moved, it felt too regular, like they were considering each movement before they made it, down to the smallest turn of the head. It seemed silly at first to believe animals were able to think so deliberately and carefully. But when I looked into their eyes, especially at night, I saw something in them. An awareness, like the mind behind them somehow knew much more than it was ever meant to. Once I woke around midnight, not from any sudden noise, but rather some sort of compulsion that drew me from my sleep. I stepped out of the house and into the dark, feet bare against the cool earth, and looked out on our plot in half-conscious wonder. Outside the makeshift Wendy house where we kept the goats at night, they all stood at the end of their leashed ropes, side by side in a neat row, facing the house as I emerged. In the kraal further out, the cows were also awake and upright, arranged in a perfect circle. And though the muted starlight was not enough for me to see beyond the wooden bars of their enclosure, I felt in my soul that all those knowing eyes were fixed on me. The animals were themselves again after the rains came, and the grass grew green once more. But I was never myself again. You know, of course, that I never was. But you said you wanted to know about my connection to my Savior. Wena unikela ngobumnyama. All I can say is, any time I use the gift, like that first time, though I didn't quite know it, I felt the power flow freely through me. I could take as much as I pleased, so long as I bore its effects. And in the times that I took that power in vast quantity, I felt the connection pull taut. I felt that whoever, or whatever, was at the other end of it was not of this world, that it had to exist somewhere beyond it, however that was possible. This seems to be a personal account of a witch, which I wasn't expecting. It's one that deals with the crawling shadow, no doubt, so I'm in luck there. She describes a being she calls Wena unikela ngobumnyama, you who gives of the darkness. The account also at least confirms my suspicion that there must be some abstract spiritual place where these beings exist. For us, if you believe in God, you tend to think upwards, ezulwini. And if you believe in ancestors, you think downwards, abaphansi. But neither of these are actual material locations. Maybe this beyond the witch describes is similar. On a separate note, this is relatively recent. Given that it's typed out and that a few references in the passage itself point to sometime in the last 20 years, probably the mid-2010s, which is when I think this particular drought happened, it's safe to assume this was recorded or transcribed by my father. The only question is, how did he get a witch to tell him all this? As far as I've been told, and have been reading from the box, they're all inherently bad and do damage and must be killed. How did he convince one to give up this secret? What did he offer in exchange? Or more likely. What did he threaten to do as the alternative? Call to the Dark, created by Sandile Dlamini, featuring Dingane, voiced by Sandile Dlamini. To keep up with the show, visit @CallDarkPod on social media or email calldarkpod@gmail.com. You can also support the show on Ko-fi by going to ko-fi.com/calldarkpod.